Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. The promotion of Dr. DANUTA DRYWA's book, The Ambassadorship of the Republic of Poland in Bern, A Story Kept Quiet, took place in Warsaw at the Press Centre yesterday. The publication describes the activities of the Polish diplomats from what is known as the Bern Group, which was focused on the Polish embassy in Switzerland and other representatives of the Polish diplomatic service who saved Jews during the Second World War. Going deep into the subject of ambassadorship, the diplomatic correspondence between Bern and London, as well as other embassies, is a very interesting story for a historian researching documents. It would make a great script for a thriller. All the diplomats worked on the edge of breaking the law, since the German government attempted to pressure the Swiss into closing the Polish embassy. So they had to be very careful all the time. What's unique about this book is the fact that we had no state officially. We had to do much more without applying for Polish passports, since it was impossible at the time. We had to cooperate with other embassies and Jewish organisations in order to get the funds to bribe appropriate officials and to receive diplomatic passports. This is why it is so interesting. We won't let another lockdown take place. Enough with taking away our freedoms by introducing restrictions which are unconstitutional and unlawful. These were the slogans of today's protests in Warsaw against restrictions introduced by the government in response to the coronavirus epidemic. The protest against compulsory face masks and other restrictions connected to the coronavirus epidemic, organised by the National Association of Knowledge About Vaccinations, began today at noon in front of the Polish Sejm. Over 20,000 people declared their participation on social media. It is not about the face masks, but about general enslavement. How much freedom and how many rights will we let them take away from us? We won't give up. Participants demand, among other things, the truth about the number of coronavirus infections. I don't know if the coronavirus is real, but I won't let them take our freedom. The Minister of Health made a fool of us. We all know what's going on, and we disagree with it. Face masks don't protect us from coronavirus. The protest began in front of the Polish Sejm and passed through the main streets of Warsaw. Protesters passed by the headquarters of Telewizja Polska SA and the Polish press agency. According to the organisers, the so-called mainstream media either remains silent on the protest or informs about a much lower number of participants. This was the second protest against the coronavirus restrictions held in Warsaw. There have been more clashes on the Greek island of Lesbos near a new temporary camp which is being built to rehouse thousands of migrants after the Moria camp burned down on Wednesday, having been deliberately set alight following attempts by the authorities to isolate those with COVID-19. Hundreds of young men gathered to protest and some threw rocks at police, who responded with tear gas. With 12,000 occupants of the camp now homeless, the situation is becoming increasingly desperate. Meanwhile, the European Union seeks a solution to the wider immigration problem. Migrants on Greece's Lesbos have been struggling to adapt to life on the streets as the government scrambled to set up tents for the thousands of increasingly desperate migrants left without shelter. With more than 12,000 former occupants of the notoriously overcrowded Moria camp now camping out in fields and along roadsides without food or water and threatened by a positive spread of coronavirus infections, the need for a solution has become increasingly urgent. But the Greek government has been forced to tread warily due to growing anger among residents of an island whose location a few miles off the Turkish coast has kept them on the front line of Europe's migrant crisis for years. The EU now plans to present a new migration policy by the end of the month, with the aim of introducing migrant relocation quotas for all member states. Furthermore, as the presidency of the Council, which we currently hold in the EU, we will start to tackle at least the most urgent problems in Europe next week. We do not only have special issues in Greece, we have them in Cyprus, Malta, Italy and Spain, in order to find a solution as quickly as possible. I will be personally committed to finding a rapid solution for families with children.
In Italy and in Spain.
So we in the von der Leyen Commission are now ready for a second effort. I can confirm Minister Seehofer's announcement that the Commission will present the new EU Pact for Migration and Asylum on the 30th of September.
The migrants themselves have been desperate to get off Lesbos and staged a protest earlier in the day shouting, "Freedom!"
There's big problem. Germany, France, Italy, Norvège. Go! Huh? Yes, no. Yes, no.
Moria, no corona.
Yes, no. Moria, no corona. It's politics. Moria, no corona. Moria, no corona. Moria, no corona. No corona.
In the chaos following Wednesday's fires, the authorities have lost track of at least 35 people who had tested positive. French authorities deployed a heavy police presence in Paris today as the Yellow Vest movement returned to the capital after having been dampened down by the coronavirus crisis. Several hundred demonstrators gathered in 2 squares in Paris for authorised marches. Police said they had made 154 arrests by 1 p.m. local time. One group set off without incident, but the other march was delayed after police used tear gas to disperse protesters who left the designated route, and some set fire to waste bins and a car. The authorities had banned protests in the central zone, including the Champs-Élysées, the scene of rioting at the height of the Yellow Vest movement nearly 2 years ago, when anger over fuel taxes and President Emmanuel Macron's style of rule brought hundreds of thousands onto the streets across France. The Yellow Vests are going back to basics. In the beginning, it was for public opinion and for demands that concern everyone. You, me, even the police. So far, the basic principles were there, but we've lost our way. At one point, we have to admit our errors and return to the basics. The renewed mobilisation of Yellow Vests, named after the motorist's high-visibility jacket that became the symbol of the movement, comes as France is grappling with a resurgence in cases of the novel coronavirus. With today's COVID situation, there are too many bankruptcies, too many layoffs, too much precariousness. We're not realising this. But there are people in distress, families who were earning well 6 months ago, who are now in distress. The country's daily cases of COVID-19 set a record high on Thursday, September the 10th, at nearly 10,000, while the number of people being treated in hospital has increased steadily this month. All public institutions are impacted. All public institutions, whether it be hospitals, schools, city halls, it's all the same. The same thing goes for the French people's standard of living. It's the same fight. They always tell us there's a crisis, but a crisis within the government for them does not exist. So if people have to tighten their belts, it should start with them. Police called on Saturday's demonstrators to respect sanitary measures in Paris, which is among France's coronavirus red zones, where it is compulsory to wear a face mask in the street everywhere in the city. That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.